So between days 3 and 9, while the chickens are strimming above and below the central band, we've got 6 days to cut some organic matter or find some organic matter or go and rake up organic matter from the forest, from the edge of the forest, and pile it up along the middle row. And then we'll put the chicken caterpillar back on the mulch for another 6 days. So that's a total of 15 days. Now, if we do that through the winter, that's the winter sequence of the chicken caterpillar for the 3 months. So from November, end of November, December, January, and February, right up to the beginning of March. That means that 15 days we can do that 8 times. So that means we can do 8 times 18 meters. So that's 154 meters of swale with one chicken caterpillar every winter. Now, if we've got 8 of them, you can then multiply that by 8. So we're going to quite quickly eat into all these swales, plus the vertical hedgerows that we want to put in as well. Now, once that's all mulched, I would then follow along as it's been mulched after it's 6 days of the chickens scratching around in the mulch on the trimmed grass. You've now got an access path above and below. And I would come in with a fork and open up the soil, and then in the springtime put the chicken caterpillar back on for another 3 days. And part of this year's research will be to find out how many potatoes I can grow without bringing in extra manure. Normally, when I open the soil up, I take the mulch off and I throw in some manure underneath the mulch as I open the soil up with a fork, and then I put the mulch back on. So I want to test that to see if I can get away with not adding manure. Personally, I think I'm going to have to put manure on, but probably quite a lot less than what I put on without using the chicken caterpillar. And then in that mulch, opened up soil and manure mix, well, I'm going to grow potatoes. I've been doing that now for 10 years. Anybody that wants to know more on the easy start in the garden with potato method, there's a link there. For my website, you'll find quite a funny page of how to start your permaculture vegetable garden if you've got too much lawn and you want to turn it into veg. And I'm going to use exactly the same process, but a little bit more stretched out to be able to do this and put this kind of pattern into place on the land. Now, once we've done the potatoes, that means that one chicken caterpillar not only is producing is doing the work of preparing the land for the swales, it's also preparing the land for me to be able to plant potatoes. And out of one chicken caterpillar, I should be able to get in between 750 and 1,000 kilos of potatoes per year if I get it right and don't miss any of the stages. So if I've got 8 of them, while putting this pattern in place, if I've got 8 chicken caterpillars, I could be producing 8 tons of potatoes a year just preparing land to grow hedges on. Then once that's prepared, you can then, on our soil here, I can then dig my swales. And now, as I said earlier, my swales here are small. They're just a spade's width by a spade's depth. So I can dig a swale here, 20-meter swale, in about an hour. It's quite easy work. I'm not attacking healthy grass. The grass has been mulched out, and the potatoes have finished off the work of killing it all off. And once the swale's dug, put leeks on the high side of the swale, and trees. Get trees in there straight away. So that's my fruit trees and my nut trees, and then grow some legumes underneath, some nitrogen fixers, maybe some overwintering peas and broad beans. Again, this is stuff that I'm researching and testing at the moment. At the moment, I've got 4 swales that I've started off with potatoes and chickens on the land, and now I'm planting my trees in there, and I'm growing overwintering broad beans and peas, and garlic on another side. Now, while the trees are growing, obviously planting a decent fruit tree every 7 meters means producing or buying quite a lot of trees, and then obviously filling in with blackthorn. Again, this is stuff that I'm still researching and testing at the moment, and obviously research when you're working with the natural world takes time because you need a couple of years to work out whether what you've done is working or not. In the meantime, you can keep growing vegetables for roughly 5 years under the trees while the trees are growing and while you're putting the hedge in. So we can grow green beans, we can grow beetroots, we can grow onions, we can grow garlic, we can grow salad crops, peas, beans, all sorts of stuff while this is growing. And then at some point, there'll just be too much tree in there. It won't be enough space and won't be enough light for growing vegetables, and we can fill up the bottom with perennials like comfrey. We can get flowers in there like daffodils around the apple trees and start creating the guilds. So that's the process. I'd say I'm about halfway through. I know what I'm doing to get started. This is almost finished, the first one, so I'll be testing that this year. Now let's look at how we're going to apply that to the situation, because our situation looks absolutely nothing like that. Now, that is our situation. We've got this piece of land here, which is 5,000 square meters, with a very long house and barn joined together. Very rough, cobbled together stone in the Limousin tradition. The roof was pretty much falling in when we bought it 3 years ago. And here is a tin and wood frame hanger with a little stone bit at the front here, and that's where we threw the chickens when we got here to start off with our temporary chicken run. Now there is a video which explains all of that. There's actually 2 videos that explain all of that, so you can find the links there to be able to look at what's going on there. And on this side of the road, this is the road running down the hill, there is a big barn and a well with 2,000 square meters of land around it. This is the land where the cows got in from the neighbour's land and kept eating the grass. Now, on this side of the project, we run an association as well, which does all kinds of activities in the rural area, because there's a big lack of things to do for people. People have to go into town, take the car, go into town to be able to do stuff, and it's stuff that isn't generally done. So we've got circus animators that do circus activities for children. We've got basket weaving classes, gardening classes, obviously with me, pottery classes with our local potter. Basically anything that people want to do. If we find someone within our social network that's got a good know-how and knows how to transmit know-how to other people and make it fun, well, we organise a workshop. We've got felt workshops. There's a neighbour who done felt course, and she makes clothes out of felt, and she's made yurts and stuff like that. All sorts of stuff going on. If you are interested, there's a link there for the association. Unfortunately, it is all in French. You can probably get Google Translate, but I don't know whether Google translates everybody's French in the same way. I know when I write something in French, Google Translate is absolutely hopeless at trying to translate it, because I kind of write French from an English point of view, and Google can't cope with it. Okay, so the bit of land we're looking at here is south, okay, and the top of the hill is here, and coming down here there's another road at the bottom. There's about 15 meters of height difference from the top of the hill down to here, and we're working on the north side of the hill in the northern hemisphere, which is very, very interesting as well. You don't find that in any of the textbooks. It's always on a south-facing slope. Now, for example, when you dig a swale on the north side of a hill, well, which side do you put the berm? Do you put the berm on the south side, like it says in the books, or do you put it on the low side, like it says in the books? Well, you put it on the low side, which then means that if you are digging a swale and growing things on the north side of the hill, I'll just get my pen and do you a little drawing, because that's okay. So north side of the hill, north is over here, the sun is here, and you want to dig a little swale, and you've got your berm, okay, because we want to catch water, or any water that we're running into it. Here mainly the swales are for directing runoff from the hardware, as I said, or from the grey water treatment unit, etc., etc. So the water's coming in here, and then we want the water filtering in over the longest distance possible. That's our objective here. It's not to catch the runoff, it's to get the water from a point of concentration at the bottom of a downpipe and get it out as far across the land as possible, which is why I've been putting them at 4% to get the water to run down, because otherwise it just hydrates the first meter of the swale. Now, swale on the north side, obviously we're still going to plant the tree in the berm, okay, so there we put the tree in the berm, and then that means that on this side we've got this edge of the swale here, okay, which starts causing a problem, because when you want to come along with your lawnmower, you end up dropping a lawnmower in the swale, or you're pulling too hard on the guiding bar for on the handle of the mower, you break the handle. So what I've done is I've prepared the land a lot wider than I needed it, and I've got a raised bed in front of the swale. So I've put my chickens on about that wide of land, okay, So 1 meter 50. Once I finish with the potatoes, at about 30 centimeters from the edge, I've dug my swale, piled up and made my berm on that 30 centimeters. Okay, so that's 60, and then here I've got 90 centimeters of raised bed. I put some nice planks down the front, planted some comfrey and some daffodils in the front to make me a nice border, and then I can carry on growing vegetables while my tree is growing in the berm. Now here I've got nice fertile soil that I've mulched the life into it. I've suffocated the green cover away, and here on the northern berm, because I've piled up the soil, so I've dug that. It's not really subsoil, but it's still that sort of, you know, minerally soil. It's not that nice loamy stuff that I've managed to create at the top. Well, that's just ideal for growing onions. So I've been growing onions on the berm. I've got my trees in the berm, and as soon as the onions are out, I'll whack some beans in there, and then I'll start putting lupins and stuff around the trees. So I've got, well, it's not perennial, but it's annual reseeding leguminous flowers, which will then bring in bees and pollinators and nitrogen at the same time. And I can keep growing in here until the trees shade me out. Okay, so that's just one of the dimensions of the product of the project, sorry, that we're working on. Yeah, how do you do swales on the north side? How do you do it on the dark side of the hill? Yes, this the dark side of the force. So north here, south here, east here. As I said earlier, a lot of this land here, from about here up to here, is pretty shady. There's some really big trees in here, as you'll see when you look at the video for what's going on here. And then here, I've done a design when I was always looking at the other side of the fence and thinking, wouldn't it be great if I could just push things a little bit further and move out into that land from this base that I've got here. So if you want to know what's going on here, there's another video and we're going to put it there. So that'll explain what's going on here. And now I'm going to explain what will happen here, because by miracle, this bit of land has just come up for sale. Okay, so we're putting ourselves into position to be able to buy this, and then we can create this experimental farm and apply the pattern. Now, as usual, land seems to be sold in rectangles of parallel lines that don't mean a lot. I did work out that's because land is sold by the square meter, and the people that chop it up to be able to put it into sellable parcels, well, they just like to be able to measure it nicely, and it is quite easy to measure. You only need to measure the width and the length, and then this length is a little bit longer, and do the triangle, cut it in half, add it all up, and you get the square meterage. So here we've got 2,000 square meters around the barn, and here there's 2.3 hectares. So all in all, that's going to make 2.5 hectares plus 5,000 meters squared here. It's going to give us 3 hectares all in all. And this land, quite interestingly, has got a little house on it already. Very, very little, very, very cute little stone house, which measures 6 meters by 4 meters. It's got a little tiny cellar, and then a one room. It's like a tiny house. You walk in, it's ruin. It's in a ruined state, but it's renovatable. And you've got a little chimney and two windows and a little door. It makes a really nice one room house, and we could probably put a mezzanine up there as well. Now, the particularity of this house is that it's under, what would you call that in English? It's on the demolition list. It means that if they decide to widen the road, and the only reason they would have to widen the road is because the tractors get even bigger. That's one of the reasons why I'm trying to create this model, so that people give up on the tractor thing. But if we did have to move it, luckily the chimney is on this side of it, so we could just take down these 3 walls and put them up the other side, and then work out what we can do with the chimney. At least the hardest bit, which is building the chimney into the gable, would actually stay where it is, even if the fireplace would end up on the outside of the house. Now we're going to carry on again in the next video. See you in a minute.